Hey, what's up guys? JT here for delicatebeats.com. Today I want to show you my current mastering plugin chain and a few techniques on how we can use certain plugins to mimic analog gear to get the best mixing and mastering experience out of the box. All right, let's go.
delicatebeats.com.
So here we are in Ableton Live, and here at the bottom you can see my mastering plugin chain. I've just imported a song that I'm working on. It's kind of a corporate pop EDM track, and we are going to work with this one today. I've exported it very quiet. I really like to have a lot of headroom when I'm working on the master. So here's the song, or at least the second portion of the drop, without any processing on it. So as you can see, there's still a lot of dynamics. You know, the kick is very punchy, and obviously we want to keep that after the master. Sometimes you'll hear super compressed masters where the kick is kind of drowned out in all of the synths and everything. So we don't want that. And I'm going to show you a few tips with compression, especially in limiting, on how to retain this punch and those dynamics. So here at the bottom, you'll see these 5 effects, and I'm going to go through each of the plugins one by one, starting with and by the way, today I'm I'm going to showcase a lot of the good Hertz plugins. I've stumbled upon this company a few weeks ago, and I was literally blown away by their plugin demos on YouTube, and I decided to reach out, and the good folks at Good Hertz blessed me with all of their plugins. So this is not a paid advertisement. It's just me loving their work and their plugins so much that I really needed my subscribers to know about those plugins, because they are awesome. All right, they are right up there with Waves and UAD and FabFilter. So if you're looking for good compressors, EQs, and just all around great tools to do very specific jobs, whether it's filtering or reducing the width of the stereo image below a certain frequency, or a great colored compressor or limiter, these guys have the goods. All right, so with that being said, let's jump right into it, starting with this mid side tool. And what that does, or at least what I'm using it for, is to make the image mono below 125 Hertz. All right, so if you've probably heard that trick, that the bass and the kick should be mono and everything else should be wider. This gives a lot of punch to a track, and it helps also to control those very low frequencies. All right, so let's just do a little before and after with this mid side on and off. So I don't know if it's just me, but it brightens up the track. And also I'm using this width here control to bring out the mid frequencies a bit more on the sides. So if we play around with this one while the track is playing, so you always want to be careful with these imagers, but I feel like at 140%, it just gives a bit more life to the track. Moving on, we have the Wolf compressor. It's a very powerful compressor, all right? And I'm using it as a parallel compressor here. There's a bunch of different settings here. I like this one. And what I do here is just, let's hear the track if it's completely wolfed out. So around the 40% mark, I really like what I'm hearing. And if we look at the other things that you can work on here, first of all, you have this lo-fi and crunch mode that's very interesting if you want to add this saturation and this more of this burning feel in the mids, so something very, very thick. In this case, like I said, it's more of a pop track, pop EDM, so I want to keep it very clean and crisp, but I really like how it brings out the mids. Usually my tracks have this smiley face EQ on, meaning that I like to boost my highs and my lows and leave the mids pretty bright. So with this here, I get a bit of the best of both worlds, meaning that I'm bringing back in some of the mids without saturating my track too much. All right. And again, I'm really just, attenuating by like 2-3 dBs, which is pretty much a standard in mastering compression from what I've read over the years. Next up is the unbelievably cool and free plugin by Extra Records, the OTT. Again, what I'm doing here is just, taking the the basic setting when you load up this plugin, and I'm just applying a bit of the plugin, like 17%. Let's listen to the track, and beware your ears might bleed, but let's listen to what the OTT does to the track. So as you can see, it's very, very crushed, very compressed. And it brings out a lot of the highs, and that's actually what I'm using it for. All right, so what I'll do usually is just start at 100% and dial back down this knob until I don't really hear the effect anymore, but I have just this little touch on the highs that's really nice. So around 17, 90, 19, 20 is usually where I'll stop. And again, track's a bit dull, but with the OTT, just a bit more intensity in the high mids and highs. Fourth plugin is my favorite EQ of all times. It's the FabFilter Pro Q2. If you don't know about this bad boy, you better get up on it, because this is by far, in my humble opinion, the best surgical, precise plugin EQ on the market. And what I'll do when I'm in a mastering setting is I'll view my curve on a 3 dB, in the 3 dB mode. And basically what I want to do is force myself to not EQ my track too drastically. All right, so just by applying here, minus 1 dB, minus 0.74, you just go touch up on the frequencies that you either like or dislike. In my case, in mastering, I'm usually reducing certain frequencies that I don't find pleasing to the ears. And usually those will be around 150, 200 Hertz for the mud. I'll reduce some of that 500 Hertz for the little boxiness that it creates. And finally, usually my track, like I said, are EQ'd in a smiley face fashion, meaning this, curve, downward curve. And I'll reduce my highs. And if we play the track, we're going to look at the frequency spectrum, and what you want to look for is basically a slope that starts higher in the very lows and goes downhill all the way up to, let's say, 15 to 20K. So this is where I'll dull back my track a bit. I'm trying to emphasize certain frequencies with my compression, and then I'll just control more of my track at the very end of the chain with the EQ. So just so that you can push the levels extremely hard with your last plugin, which is the limiter. Usually, you don't want your track too bright if you want to push it very hard with the limiter, because it'll be just so ear tiring. It's just gonna ruin the listening experience. All right. So last but not least is the Faraday limiter by Good Hertz. Once again, this limiter, ladies and gentlemen, is by far my favorite. All right, I'm using the Pro L. I'm using the Waves L2, very famous, very used amongst mixing engineer and mastering engineers. But this bad boy right here is just on a different level. All right, first of all, you can push your track, even if it's an EDM track. This guy will do the job. I mean, EDM needs to be so loud these days. But what I really like is the color and warmth here settings. And when I use this hot analog preset, what it'll do is basically boost the warmth and color. So again, because we're working in the box, sometimes we'll miss these super deep warm mids that the old analog days brought, and this is a great way to limit. But then, like I said, when you limit, sometimes it'll make the track super bright and shiny. It's not, and that's not necessarily what you want. All right, so let's listen to the track when these controls are at basically 0. Sorry about that. By the way, we are working at minus 0 dBs for our final master. So yeah, if your ears are bleeding right now, my bad. But yeah, we want to push this super hard. And usually, either with the Pro L, I can push it to minus 10 dBs like that of reduction, which is, insane by certain standards, but it's the sound of today's EDM, so what you're gonna do. So yeah, if we were to start anew, what you would do is probably go to 0 dBs on the threshold and just push it down until you find it very loud, but not too distorted. All right, and now let's push the warmth while it's playing. I feel like 40% is better than what we had before at 100%. 100% usually will give it that boxy feel. Like I said, around 500 hertz with it, which is very much the middle of the mids, brings it a bit of that, boxy feel, and it's cluttering the track. So I'm gonna dial back down to 40%, and now let's work with the color slider here. And there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. This is how I master my tracks. These days I'm using this chain, but again, feel free to experiment. I mean, 1 week I'll have this chain, maybe I'm gonna add something or remove something depending on the track I'm working on. But these days I'm very satisfied with these 5 plugins. A lot of compression, just a bit of EQ, and then you slam that track hard, and usually it'll get the job done. So thank you for watching. My name is JT for delicatebeats.com, and if you have more questions on mastering, feel free to write them in the comments below. Obviously, I'm not a mastering engineer by any stretch of the imagination, but I can push a track very hard and not completely destroy it, so I might be able to help. So on this note, I wish you a very productive and creative day, and again, thank you for watching.